As well, guys, another thing that I thought was very important to mention, I know they've kind of touched up on ship speed in 4.5. So there was a streamer on Uploader that was mentioning how the racer ships have better meaning and better purpose now, which is awesome. They got more speed, and there's a lot more stuff you can do with them. The way they talk or the way they maneuver in atmosphere makes more sense. They maneuver better because of this speed upgrade or this speed update. And I'm totally for that. The speed had increased to like 400 meters per second in atmosphere, which to me makes a lot more sense. Simply because if you take into consideration, these ships are going to be likelihood they're going to have a shield around them, whether the shield is at maximum or whether it's like a small bubble shield, like very thin. Another thing I was thinking of is shields and the range from the ship, so if you kind of like overpower your shields, like say the microphone is my ship, the shields are about here, but then if you overpower them, you get more space between you and the shields. You're defended a bit better. Maybe leveling up your shield as well. When I say leveling up, I mean like you go out and you buy a better shield generator. So metaphorically speaking, so you go out, you buy yourself a better shield generator. The bubble around your ship expands. This way, when you're in something like a an Ares or a single seater, someone shoots a rocket at you or a missile and it blows up right in your face, you don't get affected. Now, I think that's supposed to be a bug. In real life, that's not necessarily going to happen. Force fields are gonna protect you. But if the explosion is somehow able to come through the force field, then and kill you, the best way to protect yourself from that would be to expand the radius of that shield from the hull of your ship. But stepping aside from that, a single racer flight seat, the shield's likely going to be encased just around the bubble of the hull of the ship. This, all the energy is preserved for the ship's components to help it go charging across. So the point being is, racer ships, though they are faster and they're moving at 400 meters per second in a planet, is good, and the bubble of that shield is likely going to help them to move at that speed within a planet, probably even quicker because you have a shield. So what you would then do now is kind of say to yourself, what does racing mean? What's the point of sports? If you watch Formula One, guys, you see the measures they take and the measures it does take in order to win a race or to score a fine lap within a race. Fuel and fuel consumption, very important. When you take that gap to go and refuel and readjust your tires, fix your tires up, that very important. And how you take your turns, and how fast you use, and how much fuel you put back into your vehicle. All this stuff is very, very, very important. And when I don't know if that boosted stuff is really real, but when and how you use that. So there's a lot that goes into racing, Formula One. A lot of strategy, guys, when going around the track, when you're going to take someone over, how you go about doing it. It's a lot of strategy. It's not just you win the race, how fast you are, how good you take the turns. There's a lot that goes into a race that allows these professionals to say that they were the victor of that race, okay, and to say that they are the best driver of Formula One vehicles. They represent Mercedes or whatever vehicle it is that they're driving at that time. They represent that to the best of its capacity, to the best of its ability. This is Formula One. A runner can run from one end of the track in 100 meters to the other end of the track in about 9 seconds. Just about 9 seconds, maybe just under. A cheater can do it in Give me a second. Let me just quickly see how fast a cheetah can run 100 meters. How fast can run 100 meters? In 5 seconds, 5 to 6 seconds. So taking that into consideration, that's pretty darn awesome. A human can do it in like just under 9 seconds, and probably even a little quicker. A cheetah can do it in 5 to 6 seconds. So that them second gaps, they're extreme, but they're not really so vast. So a man can break that limit. So if you say what's the fastest a man can run in today's day and age, the fastest a man can run 100 meters is 9 seconds. And how far can you throw a catapult or a javelin? All these things are taking the limitations of a certain incident and creating an extremity. You're taking that extremity and you actually create an action that beats all records. You show what humans are capable of. You show what this machine is capable of, how great this engineering is. That's sport. Sport is taking an element and creating something. You're taking envisionment and you put it somewhere else and you show just how real such a goal can achieve. Your goals can achieve you so much if you put your mind to it. Boxing, all of these sports. There's so much sports. Tennis, the strategy that goes into all of these things. It's not just winning. There's a lot of strategy that goes into winning. Winning is almost like a second-hand nature as to what goes into the benefits of achieving what you had trained so hard for. It was only right for you to win. If you didn't win, the saying would be you just have to train a little harder. Ultimately, you went against the best anyway. Taking that into consideration, guys, you get into a spaceship. The limitation is not to fly at 400 meters per second planet side. The limitation would be to break whatever speed limit you can. So currently the fastest thing on Earth moves at 400 meters per second. Possibly 600, 700. Encasing a shield, maybe a little bit more. You want to use as minimal energy just so that you can zip just that little bit quicker through atmosphere, guys. Not to mention, a race is likely going to take part in space, into a planet, into another planet where its compositions are different from this planet, because we want to see how fast you can switch your dials up and go charging through each zone and win that race. 400 meters per second, if you ask me, is a douche. That is not breaking the limits of anything. Today's day and age, moving 400 meters per second would be breaking the limit, I might think. But in a spacecraft, I don't think that's beating any kind of limitation. I see we're being held back. Now, if I was to kind of put this into, emphasis, kind of visualize this a little bit. But before I do, I'm going to talk a little bit more about simulators. What are simulators? I can buy a simulator, a car simulator right now, and it can teach me how to drive. So I can go learn how to be a taxi driver, how to pick people up. I can drive them here, I can drive them there, using the real physicalized gadgets in order to help me get the most realistic feedback as possible. This is not just for training how to drive. This is also for driving to the extremes. Formula One. I can also buy simulators that can teach me how to build, etc., etc., etc. So if I get into a spaceship, I want to feel like I'm in a simulator, not in a game. One day we hope to go VR. I want to know that my VR systems is built for the purpose of feeling like I'm in a different environment. I'm in an alternate dimension, as it were, as the one I'm currently living in. A spaceship. A race. What's the race? So, you might get into a race, and the description of this race is to come from this point here to this point, you won. What's the speed limit? You're only allowed to fly as fast as 400 meters per second in space, or maybe in atmosphere. Is that an interesting race? Is that an awesome race? Is it worth watching? Would you rather go watch Formula One, see trucks do their things? Who knows? My vision of an exhilarating race in space with spaceships, with astropilots, of course, would be you start your race maybe on the moon, Daymar. Let's go with Daymar. Your race we're gonna use races, because most races are like little tiny ships. We don't have medium-sized ships or kind of larger ships racing at this moment present in time. They're all those little races. If you ask me, their jump drive should only be able to take you as far as CRU-01. So the race starts from CRU-01. A racer, let's say you're at deeper space though, so you're further out than the CRU-01. You're not within any gravitational influential system. So the goal is to move as fast as you can to CRU-01. Circle CRU-01, which is probably flying through the asteroid belts as well, and then charge to Daymar. Once you get to Daymar, you fly through Daymar, which means dialing your systems down out of the high speeds that you're moving at. Let's say in space you're able to move at light speed, but you dial it down and then you fly through Daymar, because if you go crashing into Daymar, which has an atmosphere, chances are, if you accumulate the maths applied via gravity and force as you're penetrating, it'll be like a bullet shooting onto a shield. Right? You're going to squish as you come in on entry. So that's impossible. There's only so fast you can enter a world usually. And with the tiny shields that you're going to have at minimalized energy, it wouldn't be enough to protect you, because a bullet can kill you. So you come flying through, you've dialed down. So let's say you've dialed down to maybe 600 meters per second. You're flying in out there. Maybe you're not even flying at light speed. You're flying at AUs per second. That would be AUs per second. The distance between the planet and the sun. You're flying that distance every second. Then you come to you're approaching CRU-01. So you got to dial it down, because I don't know if we can process light speed. So you go swinging around CRU-01. You dial back up your speed, maybe just a little bit below AUs, depending on what you're able to process at that time, and you go zitting all the way over to Daymar. You go into Daymar, dialing down as you're approaching. You go smashing through the atmosphere. You race your little, there's tunnels and stuff, and there's, you go through your little paths. You come around. Now the goal is to zit out of Daymar as fast as you can and go flying right back to your starting line, which is where you finish. That's exhilarating. It's not only exhilarating, it just goes to show how professional each racer is that sits behind that flight stick. Because the amount of things you have to take into consideration, the speed that you have to process, and the way you execute each motion before you actually successfully tackle it, in order to win that race or to come a certain respectful place within that race. To me, that sounds a lot more exhilarating than moving at 400 meters per second. Once we take that into consideration, then you kind of say to yourself, well, how are we going to travel to opposite star systems, and how the vastness of that? Because if you think about it, moving at 400 meters per second, meters in a galaxy, yet alone the universe, is irrelevant. So once we consider that and we acknowledge that, and if we accept that, we can now move on to another step, which is another very important step. Everyone always seems to argue about this step because it breaks a system of space battles, dogfights, which it does and it doesn't, depending on which region of space you choose to fight in. So you move at higher speeds, jolting speeds. Each ship needs to be made a hell of a lot faster. Because if you look at it this way, I don't want to go too deep with this, I'm going to save it for another video, but in space, zero element means, or zero G means there's no gravity. If there's no gravity, that can also be a way of saying that there's no such thing as maths. No maths are being applied to anything. Nothing exists in a sense. There's no gravity. It's illogical. Which means when you start generating energy, in a sense, it's like saying you're God, because you've created energy from nothing. I doubt maths are going to be as easy as 1 and 1 is 2 done. If you're able to create the number 1 in order to create another 1 to create the number 2, there's a consistency that goes into it. It's not like on Earth. On Earth, everything's being done for us. If you jump up, you're going to land back on the ground. If you hold something heavy out in front of you, you're going to feel the pressure wanting to pull you down. Everything's being done for you. You can probably even do the equations. It's being done for you. Not taking away any credibility at all. Because with this information, you're able to do excess things. I'm just breaking things down to the basic formats and the basic formulas. In space, there is no maths done for you. Everything goes right back to its origin, the beginning. Nothing. If you can create energy in nothing, then I doubt the energy that you created ends just there. What I'm trying to stress my point aiming towards is inertia. If you can create movement in space with an engine, the energy it takes to accumulate that energy to start movement, to stop, I guess I'll have to put it in another way. I'm going to save this stuff for another video, but it's something to think about, at least. And so, if there's no rules in space, what's to say you're not allowed to move at light speed in space? What prevents you from moving or generating enough speed from the most minimal speed to end up moving at the speed of light? Because there is no laws governing how things go in space. If you start creating, then you're God. You say what goes and what doesn't, as it were. It just turns out that things were made to be this way. Just turns out things were made to be this way. This way states you're not allowed to move faster than light. But if you start creating in space, there's no saying that you can or you can't, because now you're the creator. So ships need to be made faster. And how do you control that speed? The same way how you do it on Earth. You put speed limits. You simply put speed limits, guys. If you go out into the highway system or sorry, give me a moment. Or if you go out onto the motorway, so the highway system or the motorway, however you want to call it, if you go out onto the highway system and you start singing down the road, even on that road you get speed limits. They tell you how fast you're allowed to move at certain periods of times, or during certain events. You can't always go sitting at the highest speed. Sometimes they decrease your speed, sometimes they increase your speed, and you obey the road laws. When you come off the motorway, the speed limit comes down regardless. No matter how fast your car is, the speed limit comes down. And if you come onto pedestrian roads, as to like your normal high street roads, then again the speed limit likely comes down to like 30 to 15 miles per hour, and you have to obey the road laws. Same way when you're in space. In Crusader system, you can only fly, let's say, an AU per second wouldn't make sense. So maybe an AU every half hour or maybe, so I don't know what that would equate to. So you can still move at insane speeds, but you can't move at your maximum speed, or at a maximum speed. A speed, because maybe the fastest your ship can go would be 60 AUs per second. Maybe his ship can only go 3 AUs per second. So, they control the speed of everyone's vessel to move just below an AU per second. Or maybe quite considerably, you can move an AU every 60 minutes. So I don't know what that would equate to, but that's quite a few kilometers. I'm guessing hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Could be even a couple million kilometers. Taking that into consideration, that would be how you control the speed of each vessel, rather than forcing everyone to fly at 400 meters per second at best, or 1,200. Taking this into consideration, guys, you would now come into that argument. Well, then, how do you, or when would you, or why would you need jump drives? Once we cover the story of what's it called, inertia, we might get a fuller understanding of what jump drives actually mean and how effective or efficient they actually really are. If you ask me, you'd probably use a jump drive to not necessarily negotiate, but to communicate with a wormhole. If you ask me, that's the only time you really need to use a wormhole. Using jump drives don't make sense in space, if you ask me personally, because space is a place of no energy. I'm not talking about in gravitational regions, I'm talking about deep galactic space. There's no gravity. You don't need a jump drive. So you would only necessarily need a jump drive to communicate with a wormhole, which means it would be possible to fly from Crusader to Microtech, which is literally from one end of the system to the other side. It'd be possible to fly there in seconds, or it'd be possible to fly there in a couple of minutes, because the power of speed is in the hands of the player. How do you attain that speed? You scroll your mouse wheel and you start flying at a speed that you can obviously control. Obviously, there's likely going to be speed limits between. It's still a system. It will now come under the Stanton system. So you got Crusader system, you got Microtech system, you got ArcCorp system, and I believe there's another one. You got the Hurston system. Each of their systems are likely going to have their own speed limit zones. Once you come out of each system, you're in the Stanton system, which accumulates all of those systems, but you're outside of each of those systems, so you can now move at greatest speed as to when you're in one of those systems, if that makes sense. But obviously there's going to be a governor that tells you, oh, that's governing the system of Stanton. Whether or not that's the UEE, I don't know. At least not yet, because I ain't seen it in game, and I'm waiting to see it in game, and I want someone telling me at the moment. Maybe that's the only option I have in the future, but in the future I'll address it then, but not now. So ships need to generate more speed, and races would be a hell of a lot more exhilarating and make a lot more sense once we consider this, how you will go into a race with your spaceship, especially when you're doing those little ships. You got your little flight sticks, your pedals. You're actually a spaceman, but we're missing that simulator experience. So I think that would be another focus, ensuring that we bring the simulator as close to a simulator experience as to playing Call of Duty in space. I don't want to feel like I'm on Call of Duty flying a spaceship in space. I want to feel like I'm on a simulator experiencing one of the most realistic experiences I can ever experience in space. So anyway, guys, that was something that I wanted to address as well. Sit by patiently, farmers alike, and those comments down below if you have any queries, guys.